Scary true train horror story. It's been years since that night, and yet I can still hear the rhythmic click-clack of the train wheels echoing in my mind, growing louder and louder until it drowns out all sense of reality. Every time I close my eyes, I'm back there, in the dark, alone on that cursed train. It started on a cold October night, the kind of cold that clings to your skin, no matter how many layers you wear. I had taken the train countless times before, and it was supposed to be a routine journey. 2 hours from the city to my small town. The 10:45 p.m. train was nearly empty, and I liked it that way. Just me, the occasional late-night traveler, and the familiar hum of the engine. That night was different from the moment I stepped onto the platform. The air was heavy, thick with an unsettling silence. There were no passengers waiting, no announcements over the intercom, not even the distant echo of footsteps. It felt as though the entire station had been abandoned, and I was the last person on Earth. The train itself sat still on the tracks, a monolithic beast, its windows darkened like hollow eyes staring back at me. I hesitated for a moment, a nagging feeling creeping into my mind that perhaps I should wait for the next train or call for a ride. But I pushed the thought aside. It was late, I was tired, and the train would get me home faster than anything else. As I boarded, I noticed the train was unnaturally quiet. Usually there were at least a few people scattered throughout the cars, but tonight it was empty. Not a soul in sight. The fluorescent lights overhead flickered sporadically, casting long, wavering shadows that danced on the walls. I settled into my usual seat near the back, next to the window, where I could gaze out into the dark abyss of the night. The train gave a lurch, and we were off. The rhythmic clatter of the wheels was usually a soothing sound, but tonight it felt ominous. I couldn't shake the sensation that something was off. I kept glancing around, half expecting to see someone or something standing at the end of the aisle. But each time, the car remained empty. After about half an hour, I noticed something strange. The train wasn't making any stops. Normally, it would have stopped at 3 stations by now, but it just kept going, speeding through the night as if it had no destination. I checked my watch, then looked out the window, but all I could see was the impenetrable darkness pressing against the glass. No lights, no buildings, no sign of civilization at all. The growing unease in my chest was slowly turning into full-blown dread. I stood up and moved to the door between the cars, expecting to find a conductor or another passenger, anyone to explain what was happening. But when I opened the door, a gust of freezing air hit me like a slap in the face. The next car was pitch black. I hesitated, debating whether I should step through, but something about that darkness was wrong. It wasn't just a lack of light. It was as if the darkness itself was alive, pulsating, waiting for me to make a move. The temperature seemed to drop even further as I stared into the void. And for a moment, I swore I heard something moving within it, a faint shuffling sound like footsteps scraping against metal. I backed away, closing the door quickly and retreating to my seat. My heart was racing, and I could feel cold sweat trickling down my spine. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe there was a power outage in the other cars. Maybe I was just imagining things. But no matter how hard I tried, the feeling of dread kept growing. And then I saw it. At first, it was just a shadow at the far end of the car, barely noticeable in the flickering light. I squinted, trying to make out what it was. It looked like a figure standing perfectly still, just outside the reach of the light. My heart skipped a beat. I blinked, and it was gone. I told myself I was imagining things, that it was just a trick of the flickering lights. But then it happened again. The shadow reappeared, closer this time, still unmoving, still silent. I could feel my pulse hammering in my ears as I stared at the spot where it had been, refusing to look away. But the lights flickered once more, and this time, the figure didn't disappear. It was there, standing halfway down the aisle, its features still hidden in the shadows. I could feel its eyes on me, though. Cold, hollow eyes that seemed to bore into my very soul. My breath caught in my throat as the figure took a single step toward me. I scrambled out of my seat, backing away as far as I could, my heart pounding in my chest like a drum. My mind was racing. What was it? Who was it? My instincts screamed at me to run, but my legs felt frozen in place. The figure took another step, its movement slow, deliberate, as though it was savoring the fear radiating off of me. I could make out more details now. The silhouette of a tall, thin man, his clothes ragged and dirty, his face obscured by shadow, his head cocked slightly to the side, as if he was studying me, deciding what to do next. I fumbled for my phone, my hands shaking, but when I looked at the screen, there was no signal, no bars, no service. Panic welled up inside me as the figure drew closer, its footsteps now audible. A slow, scraping sound that sent shivers down my spine. And then, just as it was only a few feet away, the lights flickered out completely. I was plunged into total darkness. I stood there, frozen in the pitch black, straining to hear anything over the deafening silence. For a moment, there was nothing, and then, breathing. Ragged, shallow breathing, right next to me. I gasped, backing up until I hit the cold metal of the train wall. The air around me felt suffocating, thick with a foul, decaying stench. I squeezed my eyes shut, praying that when I opened them, it would be gone. But deep down, I knew it wouldn't be. I could feel it, standing inches away from me, its presence so heavy, so overwhelming that it felt like the darkness itself was pressing down on me. Then, just as suddenly as they had gone out, the lights flickered back on. The figure was gone. The car was empty. I collapsed into the nearest seat, my legs too weak to hold me up any longer. My body was shaking uncontrollably, my breath coming in ragged gasps. I glanced around, half expecting the figure to reappear, but there was nothing. Just the empty train, the flickering lights, and the endless click-clack of the wheels on the tracks. The rest of the journey passed in a blur. I don't remember much after that, just the overwhelming relief when the train finally slowed to a stop at my station. I stumbled off, my legs barely carrying me, and ran home without looking back. I never took the train again after that night. I couldn't. Every time I hear the sound of a train, my heart races, and the memories come flooding back. I tried to forget, to tell myself it was all in my head, but deep down, I know the truth. That train wasn't just a mode of transportation. It was a doorway, a passage to something far darker, far more sinister than I could ever have imagined. And I had looked into the abyss, and the abyss had looked back. Thanks for joining me on this spine-chilling journey. If you're craving more nightmares, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a new tale of terror. Remember, the darkness is always closer than you think. Stay scared, and I'll see you in the next nightmare.